Long before the name Poland existed, West Slavic tribes lived between the Vistula and Oder rivers. They cultivated the land, built fortified grodziska, and lived close to nature. These tribes relied on agriculture, hunting, and alliances for survival, laying the earliest cultural roots of the Polish people. In the 10th century, Mieszko I emerged as a powerful leader who united many tribes under the Piast dynasty. His leadership, diplomacy, and military campaigns created the first stable foundations of a state. By forging alliances and securing borders, he transformed scattered tribes into a centralized political entity that could stand within medieval Europe. After Mieszko, the Piast dynasty expanded its authority. Fortified towns grew into administrative centers, trade routes spread along rivers, and Poland began taking shape as a medieval kingdom. Despite threats from neighboring powers, the realm endured, rooted in a balance of strength, diplomacy, and identity. After Mieszko's death, his son Bolesław I the Brave expanded Poland's borders and even crowned himself king in 1025. The Piast rulers built strongholds, organized church structures, and strengthened ties with Rome. Poland grew into a recognized kingdom, balancing diplomacy with wars against neighbors like the Germans, Czechs, and Rus. Yet internal strife and external invasions often shook the Piast dynasty. Feudal divisions in the 12th century fragmented Poland into duchies, weakening central authority. Despite this disunity, Polish culture, trade, and Catholic traditions continued to flourish, preparing the ground for a future reunification. After the death of Bolesław III in 1138, Poland was divided among his sons, beginning the era known as the fragmentation of Poland. The kingdom split into several duchies, each ruled by competing Piast princes. This weakened central authority and left Poland vulnerable to outside threats. Throughout the 13th century, Poland endured devastating invasions, most notably the Mongol raids. Entire towns and villages were burned, and thousands were killed. Despite these tragedies, Polish towns rebuilt, fortified their defenses, and maintained cultural and religious life. Despite fragmentation, trade flourished in many Polish cities such as Krakow, Wrocław, and Gdansk. Merchants exchanged goods along trade routes, while bustling marketplaces became centers of commerce, culture, and civic life. These towns laid the foundation for Poland's later economic strength. By the late 13th century, calls for reunification grew stronger. Local rulers, bishops, and townspeople alike began to demand stability and unity. Though divided, the spirit of the Polish nation endured, waiting for a leader who could restore the crown. By the early 14th century, the push for unity finally gained momentum. Władysław I, known as Władysław the Elbow High, gradually brought divided duchies under his rule. In 1320, he was crowned King of Poland in Krakow, marking the end of fragmentation and the rebirth of the Polish kingdom. His son, Casimir III the Great, continued his legacy. Casimir strengthened Poland's legal system, built universities, and oversaw the construction of stone castles and fortified towns. He is remembered as a ruler who left Poland stronger and more prosperous than before. Casimir also promoted religious tolerance, granting rights to Jewish communities that flourished in Polish cities. His policies made Poland a diverse and vibrant kingdom, attracting settlers, merchants, and scholars from across Europe. By the time of his death in 1370, Casimir had transformed Poland into a strong, respected kingdom. His reign laid the foundation for future dynasties and the coming union with Lithuania, which would shape Poland's destiny for centuries. In the 10th century, the scattered tribes across the Vistula and Oder valleys began to unite. Under strong leadership, smaller clans were drawn into a single realm, laying the foundation of a state that would endure. The building of fortified towns became a symbol of strength. Palisades of timber surrounded bustling communities, where craftsmen forged weapons and markets drew merchants from faraway lands. Warriors played a key role in this new realm. Clad in simple armor, they trained with spears, bows, and axes, ready to defend their homes from rival tribes and ambitious neighbors. The growing state also relied on trade. Amber, furs, and salt moved along river routes, bringing wealth and influence. This exchange connected the realm to distant lands and strengthened its position in Europe. By the end of the century, the realm stood stronger than ever. What began as scattered tribes had transformed into an organized power with fortresses, warriors, and thriving trade. A nation was taking shape. After the unification of the tribes, the Piast rulers strengthened their hold over the land. Fortresses grew larger, trade routes expanded, and armies were reorganized to protect the realm from foreign threats. King Bolesław I, known as the Brave, pushed Poland's borders outward. He sent armies against neighboring powers and secured recognition of his strength across Europe. His coronation marked the birth of Poland as a kingdom. The Piast rulers encouraged the growth of towns. Merchants, craftsmen, and settlers were drawn to fortified centers, where trade fairs and markets became the lifeblood of the economy. The 14th and 15th centuries marked Poland's rise into a major European power. Under strong rulers, cities expanded, stone castles replaced wooden fortresses, and trade routes brought prosperity. Nobles gained increasing influence, shaping politics through councils and assemblies. Their agreements and rivalries defined the balance of power in the kingdom. Cultural growth accompanied political strength. Scholars, poets, and artists thrived in Polish towns, while guilds of craftsmen ensured prosperity in the workshops and markets. In 1569, the Union of Lublin brought Poland and Lithuania together into one of Europe's largest states, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. It became a land of diversity, wealth, and influence. By the 16th century, Poland's armies had forged one of Europe's most fearsome cavalry units, the winged hussars. Known for their tall wings of wood and feathers, they rode into battle with unmatched speed and strength. Their victories became legendary. Against overwhelming numbers, the hussars broke through enemy lines, scattering troops who had never seen such a force before. Beyond the battlefield, the hussars represented prestige and pride. Their armor, banners, and discipline symbolized the strength of the Commonwealth at the height of its power. Their legacy echoed across Europe. For more than a century, the thunder of their charge was a sound that enemy armies feared above all. By the 18th century, the Commonwealth weakened. Neighboring powers, Russia, Prussia, and Austria, saw an opportunity to carve its territory for themselves. The first partition in 1772 shocked the nation. Towns were divided, families separated, and soldiers forced to serve foreign masters. Despite attempts at reform and resistance, more land was seized in 1793 and again in 1795. With the third partition, Poland disappeared from the map. Yet the people did not forget. Though their state was gone, the idea of Poland lived on in the hearts of its people, waiting for a chance to return. The 19th century was marked by constant uprisings as Poles rose against occupying powers. Rebels, armed with rifles and flags, marched into hopeless battles through forests and cities, driven not by the odds but by an unshakable determination to reclaim their homeland. Though each revolt was crushed, the sacrifices left behind stories of courage that became the backbone of national memory. Even in defeat, the spirit of independence endured. Songs, poems, and whispered stories passed through villages and cities, keeping hope alive. Exiled soldiers carried Poland's struggle into foreign wars, believing their sacrifices abroad would one day help their homeland. By the century's end, Poland was still absent from the map, but the determination of its people was stronger than ever. After World War I, Poland returned to the map of Europe after 123 years of partitions. Crowds filled the streets in celebration, soldiers returned to families, and flags waved proudly in cities and towns. Yet freedom came with challenges. Borders had to be secured against hostile neighbors, and a nation divided for over a century had to be rebuilt from fragments. Despite wars and economic hardship, the interwar years saw Poland modernize. Cities expanded with trams and factories, schools filled with students, and a new generation looked forward with optimism. But the promise of independence stood under growing shadows. Storm clouds were gathering that would soon plunge the nation into another devastating conflict. In 1939, Nazi Germany invaded Poland, unleashing destruction on an unimaginable scale. Cities crumbled under bombardment, villages were burned, and millions faced violence and loss. Yet resistance emerged in forests and ruined streets, where fighters struck back in secret, risking everything for their homeland. The Warsaw Uprising of 1944 became a symbol of bravery. Outnumbered and outgunned, young fighters built barricades and battled house by house, even as the city burned. By war's end in 1945, Poland was left in ruins, its cities shattered, its people broken, but its will to endure unshaken. After the war, Poland came under communist control, Cities were rebuilt with gray apartment blocks and heavy industry, while daily life was strictly regulated by the state. Despite Reconstruction, many lived under shortages and censorship, longing for freedom. Strikes and protests erupted across factories and shipyards as workers demanded change. The Solidarity movement of the 1980s united millions, proving that ordinary people could stand against the system. Across Poland, vast crowds demanded reform, and by the decade's end, the communist regime collapsed. A new era of independence had arrived, this time secured by the strength of unity rather than by arms.